which smelled of like menthol and cherry cola. And
Hmm.
I saw one of these guys in the way. It was, you said the Wayland Valley. I don't think it was. It was a no Kali Ram hash plant that they were in a part of India, and this Kali Ram hash plant that they had was just like the twin of this plant that I had growing, you know. And I was like,
Hmm.
that must be because Old Time One um, did have lots of Indian genetics in his collection. So yeah, I was that was invaluable and kind of like giving me an idea of where this particular plant probably originated from, because it just looked identical. And
Well, it's interesting because Landrace Rodent is actually really good friends with Paki Landrace Exchange.
yeah,
They're actually really good buddies, and they actually source from different regions, which is really complementing to themselves, right? Because of their different relationships with these old tribes people.
yeah,
And so not only is Landrace Warden just the coolest guy, but he, it's tough talking to people from that region about the skunks as well, right?
hmm
So I'm like, dude, just send me like the most offensive sulfur, rotten egg, burnt rubber, like
yeah.
whatever can make sense to them, right?
Dead
And
animals they mention a lot, don't they? Which
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And then the same thing too is diesel now. The really funny thing about diesel is, like I said, I've never been the best at putting my finger on stuff when I'm growing them. And as soon as like sour diesels and things like that became popular, there was a clone that came to BC, which I don't really know the origin, and that's why I called it West Coast sour diesel. And the stem rub is just like a petrol tank.
yeah.
And if I was younger and I never heard the term fuel or diesel, I probably wouldn't have put my finger on it. I would have called it acrid or astringent or
Yeah.
Or
you know what I
sour.
mean? Sour, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No,
So
yeah,
That petrol diesel gasoline is a quite common profile found in my packs as well, man.
and I looking back on my childhood and my teenage years, I should say teenage years, not really my childhood. I can't really put a diesel finger on the roadkill just because I wasn't paying attention. Like when someone said skunk, you thought skunk. That was like the
Mhm.
power of the smell, you know? So what's your experience with your skunks? Is there any, can you pin down any petrol in your roadkills?
Well, how I put it is similar to what I said earlier. Is that I've just got. It's possible if you grow enough of the seeds, and not you don't need to grow a whole bunch by any stretch of imagination. But I'm just saying, if you grow a number of seeds, you will find a number of different skunks. So you will find. I got no doubt that if you grew a bunch of them, you would find the skunk that you're familiar with, that you're sort of searching for from your younger days, plus a whole bunch of others. So like I say, the skunk, everything seems to have a base tone of skunk, and then like what I call the RKS is the one that's very chemical. It's got strong skunk base, but then it's got strong chemical kind of ammonia, sulfur, um, top note to it as well. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the I've got one I call purple garlic pickled onion vinegar skunk. It's just literally named what it is. It's purple in the height of summer. It's not temperature dependent. It's very dark purple and it's strong, really nasty loud skunk, but with very also heavy garlic, onion, and pickled onion vinegar. Pickled onions.
Yeah.
That's and then there's skunks with like like with the gasoline, with just different skunks, like I say, like a base skunk tone. With then you'll find different plants with different nuances. Like I say, it could be like a lemon skunk. There's lemon skunks. There's skunk spray, the chemical ammonia one. There's skunk with the more rotten flesh rotten meat smells. Skunk with the body odor. And then there's the ones that smell just almost like purely burnt rubber. Um,
I love
like
those.
Yeah. And then there's ones that smell like burnt plastic. There's some weird ones, man. And obviously they might not all be pure skunks. What I did to how I create the seeds that I've been putting out this past few years. Well, man, it started like 2016. I grew a bunch of plants, and some of them, a lot of them were all timer one. And I think the first original skunky plant I found was like a mango skunk. It smelled of like it was mango and skunky, like a 50-50 of each, you know. And then I found late in the season, then as I was harvesting, because I had a lot of plants, and and also I noticed some skunks they might not. There's a whole different range of ones, right? There's ones that will stink from 2 to 3 weeks after germination, absolutely rank skunk from the word go. And then there's other ones, literally like not until week 6 they turn absolute crazy, you know. And
Yeah.
it's just a whole range of different ones acting in different ways. But anyway, then the other one I found was like the purple garlic pickled onion one that I mentioned, and then like that vomit one, that really gross vomit one. And so I kind of kept those, pollinated then with a male that had very heavy turpentine and lemon um, terps. You know, turpentine like paint thinner, methylated spirits.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that was the first male I bred with properly to create these ones. So yeah, he was like that's where a lot of the purple comes from because he would turn purple, but very very huge flowers and yeah, strong lemon turpentine. So I fucking lost my plot now where I was going with this. Oh yeah, how I got the skunks. Yeah, so that and then basically it was from those first 3 skunks that I pollinated that I just did all my selections from. Then after I found that first skunk in 2016, I was able to take cuttings as well from within, like when you've got large plants and you haven't really defoliated it, if you just let it be in the center where they're not getting light, there'll be some almost shoots, just like in veg almost, even though the plant is finished on the outside, you know.
Yeah.
So I was able to take little snips from there and keep those going. And then the following year, uh, that's where I nearly died in the fire. There's a huge forest fire, but it was a crazy year. Normally, you get the fire season every summer, but this year, though that year, it was like in March. Like every day, I was like on this big mountaintop place, and every day all around, I'd see fucking fires, you know. So I was like, I better make some seeds because if fire comes here and I've lost these genetics I've just discovered, I knew everyone was looking for skunk, and I knew I just found it. So that's what I did. I made seeds to keep off the property in case of fire. And then literally the last day of harvest, the fire did come and get me. So I was in hospital for a while then, nearly died. 75% 3rd-degree burns and a 6-week coma and fucking year in rehab. And
Oh
then
my
when I was
God.
able, yeah, and then when I was able to walk again, I went back and got my seeds from where I'd stashed them, and then took them to another country where I did the real work that I've done with these seeds now, which was like a selection from about 200 that I narrowed down to about 60. I just used one male the first year anyway. I just used one male that I'd selected, and it was a skunk, just what I call a classic skunk male. It's like a Christmas tree morphology, uh, dark pine green leaves, very, very not as what I call the roadkill skunk. That one I just call him the classic skunk, just like a plain, strong skunk aroma, you know.
That's a good gene
Um,
pool, the Christmas tree ones.
yeah, I liked his structure, and it's passed on. You see it a lot now. I see a lot of people growing my seeds, and I see that male popping up a lot, and that kind of structure passing through. So yeah, I narrowed them down to like these 60 odd plants that were all unique and special in some way, which you know I thought would valuable to the community. I knew I was going to basically do more work with the skunks that I just found and bred with, because that's what the marketplace was looking for and everybody wanted. But there was these other 60 plants, skunks, hazes, and what I call heirlooms, some old timer one, that were just all really, really fucking nice. So that's what I did. I pollinated all those 60, and that's the seeds that I've been putting out over the past few years that people have been finding the skunks in, and the skunk hazes, and just lots of nice old school plants, man, with highs that have been lost, which is totally absent in what we've been seeing produced in the last certainly 15 years.
Do you have any variations that have really pale leaves? That no matter what, the leaves are just really, really light green?
Mm, do you mean as in they start dark green and then pale out, and then they're very difficult to, they're nitrogen hungry, or they're just naturally pale
Just
throughout?
naturally pale.
Not too much. I've seen
Okay.
it, but it's not prominent. It's not prominent, no.
Okay, well, for any skunk hunters out there, and even for yourself and for me, a lot of the old guys that were growing not the landrace skunk or the Afghani skunk, kind of more sativa leaning, narrow leaf drug types, they claim that even one of the cuttings that went around, that no matter what they fed them, the fan leaves always stayed a really light green. So
Yeah,
that's a trait that people can, if they're really kind of trying to really look and hunt, that's also another suggestion that I've found.
Was it a bitch to clone?
You know what, the the blueberry types and the Thai types, which leads me back to, was there some actual real Thai in the roadkill skunk, are usually generally harder to clone. Yeah.
So we have this one person, Spencer, that does have a more pale looking skunk that is kind of a bitch to clone. And I
okay.
know some of blues are also pretty annoying to clone, but some aren't as well.
Okay.
It's really dependent.
I'm
But
trying to think. I'm trying to cast my mind back over all the ones I've grown. I mean, no, I wouldn't say it's like a dominant feature. They're very pale green, and I mean, there's certainly been lighter green foliage, but nothing that struck me as like
how about on
abnormally
the
light.
sativa looking ones, blue?
Well, no, I have noticed, certainly with some, like, that big, the two pictures that I showed you earlier of the RKS, the field, the big patch and the single large flower. Now that one, for example,
Mhm.
very, very hard. Well, it's just very nitrogen hungry, that particular one. And normally when a plant is, I like to sort of, might not be everyone's methods, but I judge by the peers. And if a plant stands out as being like very hungry for a particular nutrient compared to the rest of them, I'll just deselect against that, because I'm thinking down the line for people growing them out, it's just going to be a pain in the ass. But unless the plant's exceptionally special, I'll just deselect it. But that particular RKS there was really special, but very nitrogen hungry. It was definitely hard to keep green. And if you didn't really, really feed heavily, they were just yellowing off and just dying off as well. But they weren't
Yeah,
maintaining it.
that's a good key indicator, I would say.
Okay, well, trust me, that one was very, very difficult to keep, uh, green, and it wasn't that it maintained a light green profile throughout. The leaves would turn necrotic; they just go completely yellow and be useless,
Mhm.
unless you did really make the effort to get the nutrients into her. But she was worth it, and the yields were massive. And as you say, just like the terps, just so penetrating and lingering, and just as extreme as it gets, really.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Like I say, you just literally, if you grew out a load of my seeds, you would just see like lots of different expressions of different skunks.
Hmm.
No, yeah, I was gonna tell you earlier. I think on the last podcast we uploaded, we had someone that hit a pineapple diesel, which is another pheno that's usually reported, like straight diesel
Well, that's what I
smelling.
put in the town tickets. My
Yeah.
pineapple fuel skunk haze. Yeah, that comes out a lot. Yeah, and because it is just it's, I just named them how they are. It's very, really nice fruity pineapple, but a definite fuel as well, like
Hmm.
a gasoline type fuel. Yeah.
Yeah, pineapple's usually like myrcene, I believe. A lot of C99s are very pineapple-y.
Yeah, yeah. There's a
Yep.
lot of in the stuff that came from the lot five, because like the skunks obviously came, and the hazes come from the ESB haze, the blueberry. But there's a lot of in my Turp Town tickets pack I put out just to give people like the opportunity to discover a diverse sort of range. Um, the non-skunk stuff, there's a lot of beautiful fruits, mango, papaya, pineapple, just like tropical fruits sort of smells, fruit juice type smells, but really, really pure and beautiful. And there's lychee, it's quite an unusual.
Nice.
But yeah, it's a very definite lychee. There's menthol, like the mint and eucalyptus, and like a Vicks vapor rub. There's something
Yeah.
identical to a Vicks vapor rub. Literally
Yeah.
clears your sinuses when you inhale it. Um, there's such a whole range of tips in that pack. The cherry colas, that's an interesting one. Tastes exactly, it smells exactly like cherry cola, Coca-Cola, And what else has been found? Just every fruit you can imagine, all the fruits, all the citrus, and like I say, the tropical fruits and the watermelons and the berries, every fruit you can think of, I've managed to capture in there from Old Timer One as well.
Crazy. Well, you're
And
very fortunate to have been get to have been gifted them.
yeah, yeah, I was very fortunate, very fortunate, man. I'm very fortunate as well to have being in the UK. Obviously, everything's done on a small scale here compared to US and Canada. And so I've been lucky to have opportunities to grow on a bigger level, not on a huge scale, but on a bigger level than perhaps most people in the UK, and to be able to make these selections.
Totally. I do believe that you may have an advantage as well if you do a lot of your stuff outdoors and being able to expose them to the sun.
Yeah, yeah, to get those tip expressions and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you another question, Thaddeus. So how long did you go? What was the last time you tried old school besides like now when you're like seeking it yourself and growing it yourself?
Well, I have a strain for concussions that I call concussion.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And actually I'll restart again. So what I love about growing original Landrace and original clone onlys that go back to like the 70s is when I regrow stuff or grow new modern stuff, you can really pick out those terps and be like, oh my God, that Northern Lights #2 is like in this strain and in that strain and in this strain, or oh my God, wow, that Colombian is like in this strain and in that strain and this strain, or that
Mm-hmm.
old school Afghani's there. Like, and so you kind of really get like a deeper, better understanding of, because I'm not gonna lie, like I basically collect clone onlys that taste how they smell, super loud, super potent, and have withstood the BC market for at least a decade. And so
Mm-hmm.
most of the selection process in my main line of seeds has already been done. And I just back cross them twice to offer a stable line of seeds. So I did grow some concussion and pollinate them with this 81 skunk, which I call it, uh, next to a bunch of landrace Afghanis and Colombians. And it concussion's always been my favorite strain out of my whole line because of the roadkill factor in it. Now the only
Mm-hmm.
thing that was missing was it's a bit sweeter on the taste and the bottom end. It's not, it doesn't have that amped up lemon lime sourness. Like it's extremely sour and it's very roadkill. It didn't have the big chunks, and it just didn't have the it's a bit more sugary on the taste and a little bit more sweet and sugary on the smell.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I've had a lot of luck with I was gifted some of Res Dog's Pitbull Sour Diesel back in the day, and it's a true breeding strain. So what I like about that one is using it as a donor, and really getting to know what comes through in progeny and what's going to cancel out, or what's going to build up in the cross. But yeah, like Loud and Skunk is really always what I've been seeking, and taste how it smells. That's another key indicator of like really high terp percentages.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
you've never like switched up and like lost anything to like keeping too much hype strains or any of that bullshit. Like you never just fell for it, I'm guessing. Because I mean, it
you,
seems like you've been, or have you been growing like kind of the same strains you've been growing for a long time?
a really long time. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm like I feel like an old dude because I was just at the 419 Cup, the Mum Cup in Vancouver, and the Live
Mm-hmm.
Cup, and then the 420 protest the next day. And I got to bump into like a bunch of really good old friends that I haven't seen in a long time. And holy shit, man, they were like showing me all these new flowers, which were like really, really beautiful. But
Don't
I
get you
just
high.
really, huh?
But don't get you high.
Actually, you know what? These guys are actually quite trusted. And if you want to talk about pheno hunting, he was showing me pictures of all the packs of seeds that he was running, and he had a whole whack of samples of the ones that he kept in, like, so I do appreciate, like, there are a lot of new clones coming into my area. Like there's a ice cream cake and a wedding cake and gelato, and all of those are really starting to make their rounds. And I just kind of feel like someone took some really, really good old genes and just, you know, how I was explaining to you guys before, I'm not the best on pinning down terps because when I'm growing, I just like, it's hard for me to put my finger on it. But when someone says ice cream cake or whatever, you're like, oh, wow, that's a pretty
Mm-hmm.
bang on good way to describe it that I haven't been able to put my finger on. And they're actually really quite lovely. They're not really like, I like the really, really pungent, sour, offensive strains, but I don't want to minimize or take away, but you know, a lot of it goes back to marketing. Like I feel like I've grown a lot of those strains or smoked a lot of those strains in the past, but they were just called their lineage. There
Yeah.
wasn't this marketing tool of calling it
Mm-hmm.
you know, and because of social media now, the ability for information to travel, and if a company like Cookies or a huge company like Dynafem, you know, if they put out into the world, this is kind of what it smells like. You know, we've always had mandarins and cotton candy, and so comparing things to food has been, you know, champagne hash plant. It's always kind of been there, but I feel like now because of trending and marketing, I sort of do appreciate people coming up with those names because frankly, it's something I haven't ever been the best at in my career, to be like, boom, wow, that's how it smells. And this wedding cake that one of my students is actually growing on the Big Island, everyone in my little community loves it. And they will actually take it over the roadkill pink and a pink bubba that we've been growing. And like, to me, the pink bubba is like very, very close to RKS. The roadkill pink is like, I feel like it's one of the skunks that we got in the 90s, out of those or because it grows little raspberry buds. Basically, that's how the bags look. And it really kind of looks more like a sativa than it does a kush. But there are a lot of kushes that actually are very stretchy and could be confused with sativas. So I I I have a lot of kind of respect for like I just you know I so what I've noticed is I'm not a big fan of LEDs, but I do believe they
Hmm.
have their place. I've been on LinkedIn since like 2010 or 2012, and it's been very interesting watching LinkedIn evolve with legalization. And the one thing I'm not impressed about is how LEDs have been marketed. Um, they actually lie about the wattages.
Yep.
They only really use 200 watts, but they claim that they're 400.
Yeah.
It's like the way people lie about psilocybin mushrooms. Like you can go to Vancouver to a mushroom dispensary and they'll be like, this contains 1,000 milligrams of psilocybin, but it's just 1 gram of mushrooms in it.
Yeah.
Where there's
Yeah.
probably only 150 milligrams of actual psilocybin. So I just watching these guys in these huge greenhouses or growing under LEDs in California or wherever they're growing, they have these microscopic buds that
Yeah.
frankly I don't believe were grown either to their full potential, or why would you even grow a strain like that on scale? It so that to me is not very impressive. And I do feel like a lot of people are doing some damage to genetics because unfortunately, if you find a unicorn and you can't find a good true donor male to dust them with, you're selfing them. And
Yeah.
selfing's okay if you're like, I have to save this project for later. I'm in a jam. I'm gonna get busted soon, or my girl's gonna rat me out, and I gotta isolate this strain and keep it for the future. And then you outcross to a donor male to reinvigorate it, and you start from scratch. I think that's a good thing. But I mean, you because of social media, you have guys with these massive followings, whether they got them legitimately or not, and their reach is so big that they could just sell something in a fancy package and people are just stoked to grow it. There's every year
There's a
there's a new
weird, almost cult and hero worship of breeders in the community that's not warranted on the most part, from my perspective. And like basically, my gripe with modern varieties and the modern cannabis scene, as it were, is I just don't think they've got the highs that the old school things do. Nothing, very little. The last thing that I remember really, being on the same sort of level of some of old time and one stuff in terms of the high was like 2000, the pre 2000 Cali Mist, like of modern times. Like
I know
that's
what
as
you're
modern as
talking
I get.
about.
Yeah, like, but nothing. Honestly, I'm not just like people. Oh, you're just hating. Especially, I think younger people who haven't had any experience of old school herb and don't know that they're so everything today is like pretty much mono high. I call it triple H weed, half hour high if you're lucky. Yeah,
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Nah. Yeah. Like I'll put
Honestly, I just
in.
find that it's gone. It's a very short-lived, soulless, bland experience with most modern cannabis, compared to the old school that's got that complete body and mind relaxation, hitting all the receptors, just it's just a different experience, which is hard to articulate to people who haven't tried it.
Listen, I was
Mm.
fortunate enough to get a clone back in 2008 or 2007 called Silver Skunk.
Mm-hmm.
And for the Cannabis Cup in Holland that got shut down, I think it was 2015 or 2014. I know like the owner of the Damkring, and I smuggled a quarter pound with me to Holland, and he was like, "Oh my God, that's the original silver pearl,"
Is
and he
that
was like,
Paul?
"Where did you get this?" And I was like, "Dude, this is a old school skunk crossed to a silver pearl, which already had skunk in it, so the skunk didn't take away anything from it, and it is just the most positive, taste how it smells, platinum finish. And man, Silver Pearl was bred in the 90s.
Yeah.
Or it could have been bred in the 80s and released in the 90s. I'm pretty sure Neville did the work on it when he had the seed bank. And I can't believe it's discontinued. And I feel fortunate enough to have these Silver Pearl genetics. And that strain just blows my mind, right?
Yeah.
And I agree with what you guys are saying. Like, right now we have social media, things move so fast. People want to get their seeds to retail. And for me, I care more about the consumer and getting positive feedback than trying to dump as many seeds as I can, because I'm a medical sector person.
Mm-hmm.
And my whole company revolves around helping medical growers that are either disabled or they need it for therapeutic use. And, you know, another thing that we should probably touch on is these, in Canada and in America, companies are forced to lie about their THC percentages of their plants just so they could sell it.
Yeah.
So there's this massive disservice going on right now to the consumer, because man, it's no longer consumer based. It's about you know, how big of a hero you can be. And I'm not saying everybody's like that. I'm just saying, generally speaking, because of legalization coupled with technology, coupled with trends and marketing, I honestly genuinely feel that it's kind of the consumer that's at the biggest loss, because if you don't really care in the medical sector, you have people that have cancer and that have AIDS and they're doing chemotherapy, or they're in a wheelchair, or they're polyplegic. I genuinely want those people's pain to be killed, or I want their concussion to heal faster and for them to heal better, because I've been through all of that. You know, so really it depends on what is the person's number one motivation. And if it is just to like sell seeds and make money and bastardize genetics, then they're accomplishing what they set out to do. And like, good on them if they can do that. And that's why right now I've restarted my gene bank, and I'm recollecting all of these cuttings that I put out, because I took a 2-year break from growing just to have a bit of a respite and get really focused back on the roadkill skunk. And I got married and I had to move. So there was like all these things going on in my life. But for me, like, I like to do the work and do my best to offer a quality product to the person that's sick that I'm helping.
Well, that's what I say about, that's my true focus and aim of these, is one, to improve the gene pool. So I think it was just completely stagnated and ruined by unintelligent breeding practices, focusing only on high THC percentages. That's where it all went wrong. Started with the Dutch and then got totally fucking carried on by the Californian sort of scene. But anyway, that aside, is the medical value of the genetics that I've got from Old Timer One, because they're all from the late 60s to the mid 90s. And what people are reporting back to me, medical users, is just how pain relieving they are, and how you know, what they're just doing what they want. You know, obviously, all cannabis to an extent will offer some relief, but these old strains with their full spectrum of cannabinoids and terpenes, that, you know, where everything is kind of just so homogenized and just ruined these days. These old varieties, they've just got, they were, you know, cannabis as God intended, how it was, how it always was. You know, it's real medicine, and people are finding them much more effective than just high THC strains. You know.
Well, and yeah, let's be really clear about that. So, the first competition that I personally entered in 2012, because I had a few medical growers enter and win cups before I personally ever won anything, was a Quantacan out of California. They came to Toronto for the Treating Yourself 2012, and they were doing in-person testing. So it took like 30 minutes to get your results. They had like the gas chromatography machine or whatever set up, and they basically did a bragging rights competition of who had the most THC and who had the most CBD.
Yeah.
And my most highest testing THC strain took first place out of over 120 entries, including DNA genetics. But it is the strain that I only like to use for breeding. I don't like smoking it because there's no power to it.
Yeah.
And my strain that took third place had 18 or 19% THC, but it was a whopper in CBD. And that is like my most powerful strain. And it wins first place in every cup I enter it in because it cuts through everything.
Yeah.
And it is, and so like I'm a huge, true, full spectrum believer guy because like I believe in the entourage effect.
Definitely.
I make a cannabis vitamin that no one else has made where I put indicas, sativas, Afghanis, hemp, and male pollen into every single tincture that I make.
Okay.
And so, you know, people are like, oh, how much THC's in it? And I'm like, well, number one, it's THCA. It's not activated. There's no tests for the other 300 or 500 cannabinoids that they know are there, but they haven't isolated. And then there's no test for male pollen. And so this emphasis on testing and percentages and like all these, there's all these lawsuits now in America where labs are colluding with companies and they're inflating values just so that they could sell more at dispensaries, or dispensaries won't carry strains under 20 or under 24%. And it's
crazy.
Legalization is, they've done a lot of legalization for all the good that it's done, has actually done way more damage than I ever could have predicted.
Yeah.
And I'm really usually good at forecasting things, but unfortunately with rules, laws, regulations, man, it's a real clusterfuck with legalization in Canada and America.
Yeah.
And that's why I always liked the black and the gray market, because it was the consumer that decided what was good or bad, not the companies that are marketing things like LEDs. And I'm not bashing LEDs. There's a time and a place for them, but just the cultish vigor that things are marketed with now it's really cringy to me for a guy that's been doing this since he was 12 years old. It's just cringe.
Yeah,
just,
man. With even specifically with like that wedding cake, bro, like you could see all these strains, and just in the bud structure you could see how many people have that in their lineage and stuff like that. And not to like fully knock the strain, because like it does what it does, it looks pretty and it gets you sales, but when I had tried it, I had gotten some nug scent of ice cream cake, the bee leaf cut, which is supposed to be, you know, the top of the top over here or whatever. And it smells beautiful, looks beautiful, really good on those two scales, but you just smoke it and it's a good like 1 hour high, you know, like it's mediocre and it tapers down. It doesn't have that like breakthrough when like every single time you smoke it, you're like, whoa, I'm high, you know? And
so
that's the type of strains that I miss because I had tried them before from someone that did keep them.
That's the thing, man. Everybody needs to it's not going to change. It's like a really uneducated marketplace and consumer base, and just not through their own fault, just because of what they've only been exposed to, because of
exactly
the wrapper weed, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Well, remember I was telling you guys that if it didn't last in the commercial space for a decade in BC, if it didn't taste how it smelt, if it didn't give me therapeutic value, like for my pain and what I was going through, brain injuries and stuff, the last thing was all my strains have no ceiling.
Yeah.
So like if you smoke a joint in the morning and then you want to smoke more, you don't just burn out and crash, you actually get higher. And so those are all the criteria that have to meet what I'm growing and smoking to actually breed with. If it isn't like the roadkill skunk project that I'm like hunting for, it's if I get those clones and grow them and I don't get that experience, that's what I really liked about MK Ultra. TH Seeds, probably one of my oldest favorite American seed companies.
Yeah.
He always said, MK Ultra, taste how it smells, no ceiling. That is kind of, he sort of really helped me put my finger down on that and be like, wow, like he's bang on, because that's kind of always what I've been doing. right? And he just kind of clarified that for me.
Mhm.
So, yeah, you guys are right. Like the bag appeal is like incredible.
Back appeals killed it, isn't it?
LEDs. I do believe that they can make a plant look different, but pound for pound, I mean, people were paying $2,500 a fixture, and it just became this new trend of everyone having tents, and you can grow your 4 or 6 or 8 legal plants, and you know, like, I kind of respect those guys nerding out and dorking out with their little $5,000 cent setups and their cap junkie or seed junkie or ethos or like whatever they're into, because that's what their peers are doing, right? And that's what they're exposed to, like you said.
Yeah.
And if they're just starting out, they don't have the experience that man, after this 420 and going through what we went through the last 3 years, and me just taking a break for 2 years, the the speed at which everything changed was just like, I'm like, oh my God, am I like an old dude now that I used to make fun of when I was like a teenager? You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing. And if you're 18, 19, whatever,
It's
you're going to automatically think that whatever Burner's smoking has got to be the shit, the greatest of
Yeah.
all time, cannot get any better. But they're so far opposite the truth that it's unreal.
let me
You
tell
know,
you something from being
yeah,
like from that era myself, like, and having the age. It's one thing about it as well is a lot of the people my age don't have the ego to, or like have too much ego and can't drop the fact that they're wrong about something since they put like too much work into it, in my opinion. But I think, especially with like genetics, like I've seen and I know a lot of people from different states and stuff that were about to quit because they keep smoking weed and they keep getting tired. And it kind of has me thinking like, bro, why haven't you just grown a sativa then? Like, it's clearly an indica's not your medicine. And just different stuff like that, like they get too married to whatever they're doing. Like they're too married to the run strain, and now they're wondering like why they barely get high, or like why they, like they're always tired when they smoke. Like you got to swap it up
Well, it's
and
crazy
really
because
find what you like.
when I was young, when I first started growing, I wanted to grow things that I could never find on the street. So it's like,
Exactly.
well, something, and this is, again, the 1984 world we live in now, where everything's back to front. Kids are calling cookies and gelato exotic, when exotic means from a foreign destination.
I
And
know.
it's like, when I was young, exotic was Thai and Malawi gold.
Exactly.
I was like, man, if I don't grow Malawi gold myself, when am I ever going to get to try that? And so that's what I did when I first started growing. I did do like Northern Lights to begin the first time, but then my second and third grows, they were like all Malawi gold and Indian hash plants and stuff like that. Stuff that was exotic from, it was not from Holland, but was from Thailand or Africa, exotic places.
Exotic sativa that wouldn't finish indoors where we lived, where it's cold.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Malawi gold, the first time I grew it, I think I did go to 16 weeks indoors. Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of glad that you brought that up, because if you guys ever wanted to consider bringing me back, we can touch on the subject now briefly. But for the longest time in my career, I always said that the nose knows.
Yeah.
And moving out to BC, when I grew up in BC, grew up in Manitoba for a third of my life. But when I came back to BC and I started to learn how to grow commercially, everyone was obsessed with yield. Where in Manitoba, people had like small micro grows that you couldn't talk about. It wasn't commercialized. You could never share information with anyone or let anyone know you were growing. And coming out to BC, like there was a grow op in like every third house in the lower mainland, and people had to source clones from commercial factories that were producing like 50,000 clones a month. And everyone was like, you got to take everything fucking 10 weeks, man, because you're going to get the yield. And it was like all about the money and the yield, because the Americans were coming up here with American dollars and spending anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 US. Not in 2003, but what created the commercial market in BC. Everyone was like yield, 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 and I'd always tell everyone, like, listen, THC degrades so fast after peak harvest that only your nose is really going to be able to tell. There, you have about, depending on the strain, you have 5 to 15 day window if it's like a fast flowering and fast finishing to a longer flowering plant, where the room has like an overwhelmingly pungent aroma, and that is like your senses know better than your eyes do. And I would never bicker or fight with people that use microscopes or whatever to gauge, because they're doing their own thing. But for me, I've always known through the smell of the room, because if you're growing hydroponically, it's going to finish faster. If you're using CO2, it's going to finish faster. And now you just have a lot of inexperienced growers who have bosses that only care about putting out numbers, just the way they did back in the old days when you're producing it illegally, because all you cared about was the dollar. But the truth is, any strain, even indicas, can be really heady and really racy and very energizing as long as it's taken down at peak harvest. And just unfortunately, people aren't looking at peak harvest, and they have these massive fucking greenhouses, maybe a quarter of the greenhouse, it took a week to trim it, and then they're on the next harvest the next week, and then those plants have already degraded. And when THC degrades to CBN, you lose the nose, you lose the loudness, you lose the taste, and basically you're just smoking stuff you're going to get immune to right away, and you're just going to feel sleepy and tired. And so I kind of blame the growers and the companies at that point, if they're selling product that isn't peak harvest, because it's just if they're just focusing on yields the way a lot of these pump and dumpers, even in the old days, cared about, the consumer's not going to benefit from it. And it's so short-sighted to say, let's just get the yield and fuck the consumer, because you know what, if you can capture your consumer senses, they're always going to come back. Because if everyone else only cares about yield, then you're gonna your lifespan in the industry is not going to last, because truly it's like wine, and it's like cigars, and it's like cheese, like or fine liqueur. Like you want to reach those people that care about what they're getting, and that are going to get that bang and going to get that result. So it's a bummer that it's just reoccurring.
I think that's where legalization's fucked us up a little bit, because I think we're gonna lose, like, the people coming up. They're not gonna necessarily have that. Connoisseur might be, slightly elevated way of putting it, but they're not going to have that consideration, because they're never going to be exposed to it. Whereas because it's legal, it's in a shop, it's in a dispensary, they're going to sell that product regardless to an ignorant customer base. Whereas back in the day when things were illegal, people were competing on a quality basis because they had to sell their product. Do you know what I mean? So they were making that effort to grow quality genetics, and to in a way that was delighting the senses, really, because that's what you had to appeal to.
And because the consumer decided, and that's what kept the strains around that mattered.
And nowadays, all they've got to do, and people have no memory, man, and time passes quickly, and like, it's very easy just to bring up the next generation on a pile of dog shit that they're thinking is gold.
Dude, the cannabis space is so fickle, and one of the main reasons is when you're dealing with a biological plant, and you're dealing with seasons, and you're dealing with all of these things, it is just so difficult to deliver consistency. Because no matter how good the grower is, if you're living remotely and you have a power outage, like, there's all of these variables that are involved in really trying to deliver a product that's consistent and uniform constantly, no matter how much you try and how much redundancy you build into your methodology. you're still at the whim of factors that are totally out of our control. And man, I have like students that win tons of cups, and they actually tell people they don't even know me, and the fickleness of it all is they've basically, because I took a break and because I've been focusing more on breeding and not producing flower, they're just trying to hijack my clientele,
Yeah.
and and even if they have one bad batch, all of a sudden it's all over social media that they suck, and you're only really as good as like your last crop in this industry.
And again, it's legalization that's kind of brought this problem out, because a lot of these fucking, weak moral little bitches, they couldn't have survived back in the day when we were doing things, and they're only in the game now because it's legal, and so it's bringing in all these people that haven't got the characters that we used to have. Do you know what I mean? If you see what I mean, and that on an esoteric kind of level plays into the quality of the end product, because you're getting what this person's energies, etc. And
Yeah.
if it's grown by a cunt, then it's gonna be shit, isn't it?
Well, you know what? I thought urban myths were bad in the space when I was coming up, and the fucking urban myths and the bullshit and the dogma that's come out now with legalizations, it's totally blown my mind. And what blows my mind even more is people lap it up.
Yeah.
They just, and like you said, they don't have the experience. And legalization has brought a lot of new users that aren't young, but because it was illegal, it was immoral.
Yeah.
And now that it's legal, it's moral, and they're going to try it. And it's kind of like almost any industry out there. There's the universal key factors of, what I do is what I call active business. So I actually started the company officially as a form of activism, and I had a mission and an objective. And it's nice that I'm allowed to make money. But at the end of the day, if my customers aren't there and they're not happy, I don't make money. And so they like always come first. And when you structure things corporately and there's investors, you lose all that. And then those companies end up losing because the customer's never first.
Yeah.
So, I have people that have supported me for like 20 years, and they keep coming back. And, you need a raving fan base, or you're just going to be another fickle company that has a 5 to 10 year lifespan, and you ride it out and then you move on to something else, and, you gotta give a lot of credit to these companies that got big online, because the online digital stuff is more work than the growing is in delivering a uniform, consistent product. It's the world we live in. There's no way to get around it.
Yeah.
And then, like you and me, I've lost something like 30,000 Instagram followers that I never paid for, because people that don't want to do the work and don't understand how hard what you have to give up and how hard success is, you just attract all these weird haters, and they cancel your social media because discrimination is built into our world, because big pharma controls the monopoly on medicine and therapeutics, and they dictate what the rules are for social media, for what you can share and for what you can't share. And so it works for the haters or whoever it is, the people that don't like you. Whatever the situation is, it's easy for them to get you canceled on social media, and it's just a huge shit show, right? Because
I've
what can
literally
you
had
do?
36 accounts. I'm on my 36th account currently, but to be honest, there's pros and cons to it. What they don't realize is that I'll never quit, which is what they do realize now. I think the people mainly responsible for the accounts going down, they know it's just like not much point in doing it, because I'm not quitting and I'll just come back. So I've had like 36 accounts, most of them with up to 10,000 followers, and so yeah, but that is the flaw of Instagram, that any little snitch can just get rid of your account if they want to. But
It's crazy. I've just been deplatformed because somebody like this is not on Instagram, even on other sales platforms, like sale or purchase platforms or retail platforms, where something happens in the mail and they're like expecting overnight delivery, and they were explained ahead of time that the order is probably not going to be there for 15 working days, and they just run to the moderator or whoever's in charge, or it could be AI even, and they're like, "Oh, this guy's selling child porn," and they just get you canceled, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
they still receive their parcel, and they have no issue doing that to people, and that's the digital age, and it's just it's par for the course, right? Like it's just a whole nother realm of problems as business owners that and entrepreneurs and challenges that we got to deal with. And so you're right, though. I do love the connectivity of social media and being able to watch someone grow your stuff in another part of the world, and
Yeah.
you can give them tips and give them advice. And so that's all like the positive, incredible power of social media. That's just, you know, you can never complain or criticize.
Yeah, and you do meet good people once you've, filtered through. You do end up meeting good people eventually, So that is one
You know
positive
what?
side to it.
If I get a nutter, if it my calculation basically is I get about one nutter out of every 100 orders, and I don't know what's going on in their life. Like they could have some very serious psychological or childhood trauma. Like who knows what's going on in these people's lives legitimately
Yeah,
that I can't touch on. And if that's the way that they've learned to deal with the world at large, then that's just how they deal with it. And unfortunately, I go out of my way and above and beyond to cater to these people. And you're still the bad guy, and there's no avoiding it. So if 99% of those people love me and love the product and whatever, it's a wash with that 1%. It's just over 20 years or whatever. That's just it's always that one out of 100.
yeah. So what are
And
you
you just
currently doing business-wise at the moment? Are you breeding? What are you doing? Do you want to tell like the audience sort of how to get hold of you or what you're doing? Promote yourself a little.
so I'm always trying to do my best to business by far, if you want to use the word quote unquote spiritual, has been like the best thing for me to develop as like an individual, and to just learn a lot about myself and about others. Um, my claim to fame is I was like the first person to combine weed, seed, and feed together.
I
So I've been
remember
like,
you using that expression back in the day. Yeah,
all your weed, seed, feed
yeah,
needs. And you know, it was an evolution of me being like, I'm an optimizer maximizer mentality. You know, like my grandma ran a business for like 50 years or something, and I inherited her genetics, and I just was like, why would I spend so I can grow award-winning cannabis in Manitoba for 3 cents a gram. But that's like me doing all the work. But I figured out, because of the old school days where you couldn't really tell anybody and you had to do the work by yourself, unless you were married or something and you had like a wife involved, and you know she would get in trouble too. You'd basically have to do everything on your own. And so just over the years, like I came up with the Medman method, which has improved like so many people's lives. And I'm always trying to optimize my input to maximize my output. And that's why I developed the company, because I was like, hey, if I can mix this incredible fertilizer that gives people incredible results, um, I don't have to have that expense. I'm actually getting paid to grow. So I'm always trying to add value, compound value, and I can offer that to people. So if they buy the seeds and they like the seeds, they're like, wow, maybe this fertilizer's good, right? And then I got people coming back to buy the fertilizer, or vice versa. So it was just basically an evolution of me and my life, and being like, wow, I could offer value especially with medical people that are on disability or social assistance or whatever. Like, I just saw Advanced Nutrients charging $1,000 for this little package, and I'm like, man, they could still be making a profit at $100 for that little packet. But the problem with them is they spend a ton of money on advertising and marketing and trade shows, and like, and so I get it. There's all these other added
Court
costs that,
cases.
you know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
isn't just Advanced. I don't want to isolate them, but all these companies have big budgets and big costs, and so they do kind of care a lot more about the profit. And so I've just always kind of wanted to be that person that if I'm basically getting paid to grow, then I'm winning. So actively trying to be an Advanced Nutrients or a Canna or whatever, who knows, like, that's never been my agenda, and I give a lot of respect and props to people that have like brought that one product to those things. But because I have all of these verticals and horizontals built into my company, it's just kind of really, it's a lot easier to have one incredible product and then pump that incredible product versus like having all of these SKUs built into one. I'm just growing kind of more organically than really trying to push an agenda and get investors and kind of take it to the next level. Because I do like having a personal approach and dealing directly with the growers and directly with the consumers versus trying to expand. And then I feel like there's a disconnect there because I can really relate to, I would say, like I said, 99 out of 100 people that support me. We're really kind of on the same level. And even if they're starting out, there's nothing better than someone coming back to me going, wow, dude, we used your method and we didn't believe it, and it's just totally changed our garden. Can we buy some seeds? Or because the method's always been free. I've never really hoarded any of my information because I don't feel like sitting in a basement in a grow tent, patting myself on the back, going, I'm the coolest guy in the world. Look at me in the mirror. I don't think that helps the world or society at all. I think it's quite self-centered, actually. So yeah, I just got awarded most cannabis specific fertilizer. I was the first guy to start calling strains for like the ailments that they treated.
Yeah.
And definitely, fortunately, because of my generation and where we came up, I'm proud to say that I have like more industry firsts than a lot of other companies because I was directly involved with legalization in Canada through my active business, right? Where people didn't have those opportunities when it was the drug war and you'd get 30 years in jail if you got caught with a seed, so the people that came before us allowed our generation to really take a grip of and to work upon what they did. So I got to give mad credit to all of those older guys. Like, it's funny. I have a lot of Sam's friends trying to come on to my roadkill pages and try to defend him. And I always have to emphasize, I'm like, guys, listen, this isn't about Sam and this isn't about me bashing anybody. This is just about like me trying to find the truth and to have people try to help me find the truth for my project. So I do have to give credit to all those guys that changed the seed business, and Dutch people really revolutionized the seed business and made it super business-like and professional. And they really like streamlined that process. And you look at Dynafem now, like I know one of the owners and he's like the coolest guy, and he's given me so much advice to help me improve my breeding. And like none of us would have been here without our ancestors and without these guys that came before us. And it gave me the opportunity to be able to accomplish what I've done and to help people help me accomplish what I've done and what they've done in general, right? So that's just kind of like just like my thing. And like I've had the opportunity to freely train and apprentice and have students now that are just like growing the most fabulous cannabis. And even though they're stuck in their own little heads trying to tell people they've never heard of me or don't know me, even though I have 15 years of documentation of me teaching them and like high school pictures and stuff like that. They're on their own journey and they're going to have to deal with whatever karma they're going to have to deal with. But, you know, they just really help validate the method and the products and the systems. Like I've invented a few soil-based and hydroponic-based things. So I just feel like Medman brand is like really combined a whole whack of individual companies under one umbrella. And I'm looking into like making a master grower tool line for commercial growers and companies, but it's I'm just a slow mover. I like to do things right, and I like to make sure that I try everything. If we do want to touch on one product that's by far been like my best selling product to date is I started making a magic mushroom tincture around 2019, and Paul Stamets, who's one of my neighbors where I live, he put out a video called like Fantastic Fungi on Netflix. And so my recipe is like 6 strains of magic mushrooms, 6 strains of medical mushrooms like chaga, turkey tail, birch polypore, all the good ones.
Lion's mane.
Lion's mane, cordyceps. And then I actually add San Pedro, Peruvian torch, coca leaf extract. There's shilajit in it. There's 1 strain of magic truffle and 1 strain of black truffle. And so I'm like the true full spectrum guy. So I like to be able to throw all those things together into one package, and it's just countries and science, because of Paul Stamets, are now really realizing how incredible medically and psychologically, therapeutically, you name it, how good mushrooms are. And I'm actually slowly starting to believe through my own use of the liquid magic that mushrooms are superior to cannabis in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
For medical use.
How are you using that mixture? Like a microdose tincture?
Yeah, so I do a dual extraction, which takes a little bit of time. So all of those ingredients have to soak in alcohol for 30 days minimum. And then you have to do a water extraction as well. And I just improved the formula by liquefying it all. So I used to strain out all the ingredients, and now I'm pulverizing them in a special blender so that I'm not losing any of the plant material.
Okay.
And it's just incredible. I ship that stuff worldwide. So even if you guys wanted to try it, I would just send you a sample. And it would get to you guys, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be
man.
great.
And then
Mind trying it.
even on like the seed stuff, I do have a massive library, and there's probably some seeds there that I'll never even get to try to grow. So if there's anything in particular that you're looking for, I have a really good old school base of really good North American Pacific Northwest genetics that are just basically laying around.
Yeah.
So
No,
if there's
it's
anything in particular you guys are looking for that you don't have or that you've always been looking for, you guys should holler at me about that as well.
Thanks, man. Appreciate
yeah,
that.
that's solid, bro. But I wanted to say, man, like Paul Stamets, that's pretty, I won't lie, that's up there. Like he
Yeah, he's a
definitely
very
did
cool
a
guy.
lot for the game, Definitely did a
Oh
lot for
man,
the mushroom game. So like how's it
yeah,
like? Like have you spoken to him sometime as he
you know what? He basically spends, so there's a lot of people that kind of seek refuge on our island because of its isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the reason why people go there or move there or vacation there is because of that environment.
Yeah.
And he is literally like, when I look at his Facebook and his LinkedIn, he's like in a different country, in a different city twice a week. And
Jeez.
so I want him to enjoy his, like, he does do conferences on our island about 3 to 5 times a year. And he has like psychedelic doctors and experts and people from around the world that I get to meet that come to his conferences. So I'm never really openly trying to engage him.
Nah, yeah, I feel you. It makes sense.
I just moved there, so
Yeah.
I see him quite a bit, but I'm not trying to be like, "Oh, you're my hero." Like,
Nah, yeah.
it's
Yeah,
true,
it's
but I he's kind of there for a reason because he doesn't want to be him there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I
yeah,
know.
nah, that
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. But like from being there, have you from being near his like vicinity or within his place, like those conferences and stuff, like that, I'm guessing what like anything big from there that you've noticed has given you like an aha moment
Yeah,
with
like I've actually
cannabis
I've
and
been invited.
psychedelics.
I've been invited to a couple of them, and unfortunately, because of my move last year,
Yeah.
it was just one of the most probably chaotic years I've sort of ever had in my life. Is because like moving there was like, just, it's not like moving to a regular place. It's 2 ferry rides from Vancouver Island.
Mm, yeah.
Um, what's great is, like any conference or trade show, you have this awesome meeting of the minds, kind of like what us three are doing right now, just like
Yeah.
sharing stuff, getting stuff out there. And he is basically the reason why I made this tincture. And it's almost like every couple months he's coming up with new things, and so I'm always like improving my formula. And what's very, very cool is you have all these doctors and all these PhDs and all these experts that leave the conferences and they're like, we're starting panels in our own countries. Like, we have people from like Holland and the UK and South Africa, all around the world, come there to listen to his talks. And they're like, we can't wait to go back because we've already started a panel to start getting this stuff made for medical use. And so to me, that so being able to get this information, sharing it with
Hmm.
those people, because I do a market every Friday there. And so whenever there's a break at those conventions or those lectures that he's giving, they always come to the market, and then I get to meet them all, and they're just always sharing stuff with me because it's always improving. Like I said,
Yeah.
I'm always trying to improve myself. I'm always trying to improve my formulas. And so yeah, like I said, every few months something new comes out that enhances it and makes it better, and I'll add it to the formula, and then the doctors and stuff, like I unfortunately, big pharma created the doctor doctrine, which there's, to me, there's no surprise that those are like two very similar words. But science really minimizes, to me, it can help something, or it could stunt something, just based on a paper that's published. So science does have a place in the world, but to me, it's not the end all, beginning all of anything. Like, I think it has a role to play. So fortunately, I have enough, like, I can share stuff with these people that they could take away something, and then they could share something with me, because like the whole procedure of like taking psilocybin and like laying on a couch and you're inside, I kind of feel like it'd be way better if these people could be like outside in nature, but these are my experiential opinions. And science and stuff is all about sterility and being scared of germs or something going bad, and I appreciate why they don't want anything to go bad, and someone needs to be in a safe place, and who knows what they have to go through. So But I've been watching Paul on YouTube since like 2007 when YouTube first launched. He's been like I've been the hugest fan forever of the guy. So it was very, very strange when we went to go do a home inspection, and I have like photographic facial recognition. I can remember people
Mm-hmm.
from when I was like a young kid, and I was like, babe, that was fucking Paul Stamets. What's he doing here, right? And then once we moved there, we realized he lived there, so it was a real fucking trip.
Nah, yeah. I could tell in uh the way that you do that tea with everything mixed up, it definitely takes some influence because I did hear him talk about mixing up psilocybin with lion's mane, but like you're kind of taking it to the next level there. My only thing is like, hey, if you take too much of that, what dimension do you land in, bro? Do you land in like the peyote side or the mushroom side?
Oh, I see what you
I'm
mean. You know
joking.
what? You would probably have a God realization if you drank half a bottle or a full bottle. I've never really personally done that before,
Yeah.
but the the thing is like I said, I really try to focus on plant medicine as therapy, and if people need to break through for the therapy. Sorry, I just got to plug my phone in here. It's about to die. Um, I've just always been a huge fan of looking at cannabis and mushrooms as vitamins and health food supplements. And I do believe with doctors, so like ever since Canada came out with the medical marijuana program for home growing, a lot more doctors felt more confident to get into the therapeutic side of it. And doctors in Canada were saying if you actually get stoned on weed, you've overdosed.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and you know how we're just kind of talking about how there's truth in everything. I kind of It kind of sort of made sense to me because you do have a lot of people that are going through chemo. They've never used pot before. And I do believe that there's a lot of benefits with non-activated cannabinoids that are like extremely therapeutic. And that's why the liquid life tincture that I make that has the indicas, the sativas, the Afghanis, the hemp, the hybrids, male pollen, um, it's all non-activated.
hmm
Because I do believe that there's this vitamin health food aspect of cannabis and mushrooms and other power plants that can just do us a whole lot of benefit and good without these what doctors would call adverse reactions or overdoses.
yeah, yeah. I agree with that.
And man, a lot of my clientele are like over 60 years old, and they just want the ache in their hip or their knee or their neck to just be alleviated a little bit, if not taken away, right? So the last thing I would want is to like give them an edible where they couldn't move for 48 hours and then they're just traumatized from these plants for the rest of their life, right?
Well, again, that's
Yeah.
why I think the old school genetics do help a little bit because I definitely think it's the higher THC only varieties that are more paranoia inducing and get people on that kind of level. Whereas a complete broad spectrum cannabis variety that's got some CBD and everything else that's meant to be in there present, then it's got more of a modulating, balancing, calming effect and pain relieving than just that. I mean, I've seen people just experience the high THC high and they get paranoid, if they're not an experienced user, for example. And yeah, but with the old school, I think it's more of a balanced effect.
Well, another thing too is one of my neighbors on my
It's like an
island,
anti-anxiety.
he's an award-winning chocolatier, so he makes bean bar chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the last year, he's been actually teaching me and educating me about the medical and therapeutic value that the Aztecs and the Mayas used with chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And,
facts right there. And if you
right?
go to those places, they'll sell you the strongest chocolate that you'll ever, just looking at it, it almost looks like cash. It's crazy.
Yeah,
And it's just like
exactly.
dark chocolate.
It's medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Raw cacao.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, you know, I'm like I said, I'm always trying to learn, and I'm at this day and age with my age and like trying to really stay excited. Like we've touched on a lot of things that have like made me not excited about of the state of affairs with legalization and everything that's happening with big corporations and big pharma getting involved.
Well,
And
bro, I was going to say, you've been super generous with your time. And if you want to come back on and like explore any of those things in more depth, we would love to have you on. I've
yeah,
really, really
I
enjoyed
would
having
love
you
to
on,
be
man.
back. I
Really
do
glad
really
to be connected.
appreciate your guys' time to share.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so I'm just conscious that we've took 3.5 hours of your time, and if you wanted to come back at another time, man, we can kind of wrap up now. And
Yeah, I would love to. You know, if you guys ever feel like you want to talk about processing or harvesting or like standard operating procedures or quality assurance, getting into the more modern era of production, or um, yeah, that'd be fucking awesome.
man, you're literally welcome whenever you want. If you want to come on once a week on a specific topic of your own choosing, you know, I think the guests, I mean, I think the audience listening will really like this episode, enjoy this episode, and would like to have you back
Yeah,
on
same,
regularly,
man.
man.
Well, you know what? Even if I would love to do that, and if it's no conflict of interest, I have a ton of products that aren't seed related.
No,
So
absolutely. Come on and
if
promote whatever you want, man.
no, no. Well, what I was gonna say is I could do you one better. Um, if you guys wanted to offer to your audience, like I could even, you know, and I could affiliate with your show, or I could sponsor your show. And like I said, conflict of interest aside, when it comes to genetics, I have a whack of products that I could just give to you guys. If there's viewers out there, if you want to come up with an elegant way to do giveaways and stuff like that, I'm your guy.
That's really, really kind of you, man. And likewise, I'd love to give you as many seeds as you'd like to run so you can take a look at the gene pool I got, because I think you're going to enjoy a lot of it, you know?
Well, I am definitely going to send you some care packages, and you guys can definitely try it out for yourselves. And then if it's up to your standards to give it away to some of your listeners, or to figure out an elegant way for you guys to get it out to some of your favorite people, I'm there for you guys. So
All right, man. That is, well, it's really kind of you. Like I said, I'm really, really, really enjoyed having you on. Really glad we connected, and
yeah,
definitely
me
would like
too.
to have you on regular, man.
I'd love that. I'd really appreciate it.
For
All
sure,
right,
man.
excellent. So, yeah, I think it's a good place to wrap it up. And thanks to everybody listening. And we will definitely have you back on regularly, bro. Appreciate you.
Well, do you mind if I just share something with you guys quick before I go?
Absolutely. Sure.
So this is what my life is like building up the gene bank, and the region that I live in is I don't think I have them on me. I just got these. I just got these. I wasn't thinking we are going to talk about it, but I have a really cool guy from Uganda that comes to the island to vacation every year, and they're getting set up with a legal grow. So in one meeting yesterday after 420, coming back to Vancouver Island, one of my friends showed up and brought me the original Dr. Grin spoon cutting.
Ah,
Nice.
That actually tied for first place overall at Winnipeg or Manitoba's first Cannabis Cup I put on as a fundraiser to support the legal team that kept home growing legal in Canada. And I actually got an old school BC skunk here for my project from a friend.
Mm-hmm.
nice.
You guys see that?
Yeah,
And
that's
then
some far.
this one's pretty, the bathroom actually reeks, and these are just like 5 or 6 clones. This is Fraser Valley Blueberry, the one that Reefer Man bred. This is Roji's OG cup.
Yeah.
And then I have the original California Purple Kush that came out of, I think it was the Ulster.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of can't really see the PK, but it's in there. So just
Yeah.
a day in the life of the Medman. I'm actually visiting a friend right now. I'm halfway home, and so I've put a little heater on in the bathroom just to keep these things alive. Because a lot of them don't have roots; they're just slips. So
I like it. I like it.
cool. Well, to be continued, right?
Awesome, without doubt, definitely, definitely to be continued.
Okay,
All right, buddy. Thank you.
we'll
And
be in touch. And thank all the viewers and listeners for tuning in.
yeah, definitely.
Really
And
appreciate their time.
thanks for listening, everybody. And be sure to hit the subscribe and to check out Medman on all his platforms.
Appreciated.
Thanks, guys.
Oh
Take care.
yeah.
Yeah, much love and respect.